Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to a Freedom Friday Masterclass. This is your program, is your mirror. And we will be talking about making your programs, your recital programs, your concert programs, your showcases. If you are a teacher, we'll be talking about getting repertoire that is diverse on those programs. How do you get students to sing the diverse rep? Um, and we'll be also reflecting on some things about ourselves. So let's just get started because we don't have as long as we used to. If you have questions and you're here with me, or if you have questions and you're here with me right now, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and I will yield to you. And then if you are watching this later, feel free to comment on wherever you're watching it or send me an email / a DM. All right. So our opening agreements this evening, y'all that have seen the other ones know that I have been yes about opening agreements. I think it makes us just for a second come together in the center. All right. So release any shame that comes up. I think oftentimes when we're doing this kind of work, shame can arrive because you haven't done it yet, or you feel bad that you haven't done it more, or, perhaps this is something that you've never even thought about. And there might be shame that comes up from that, or like shame about something that was represented in a previous program or something like that. We're going to release all of that. It comes up, we allow it to come up, and we release it. All right. Your choices reveal values, not excuses. So any choices that you make in repertoire reveal your values. It's not an excuse. And then identity is not optional in programming. The ask here is that you bring your full self. We're going to look in the mirror, find our full selves, and build a program on the world that we want to see, right? So you have to bring your identity. All right, so every program is a mirror. Every single one. Every one that you've done, like whether that was your own production, whether it was something that you did at school, something that you did in the community, all of them are mirrors. And they may not be a direct mirror of you, but they are a mirror of whoever the person is that organized it, or the organization, right? It reflects their values. So if you take a peek at your last program, and if you don't have a last program, perhaps one that you haven't performed yet, and if you don't have that and you're building onto it, think about one that you've gone to see, right? This could be as small as like an indie artist that only gets 20 people at their concerts or less, or it could be Beyonce level. Like, what do Beyonce's programs reflect, right? Like we can take this as macro or as micro as we want. But if you do have a last program, what would your last program reflect if it were a mirror? So my last program, I did 2 song cycles. Is that true? I think that is true. No, maybe I only did one. I did a song cycle, at least one, by Stephanie Powell. And I also did Love, Let the Wind Cry on the Dark Mountain. And then I think that's right. I think I closed with maybe Guide My Feet, Lord was there. But anyway, my last program was all Black women composers, one of which was living. I think that would reflect that my goal is to get Black classical music out into the world and recorded. And that's exactly what I was doing. And it was also making a statement. The song cycle that I did was called Then, Here, and Now. Then, Here, and Now. And that particular cycle makes a statement in itself. It was written right after George Floyd was murdered as a reflection on that. And it is a collection of spirituals and arrangements of spirituals, and it's 4 songs. And so in the mirror, I think it reflects the struggle and the overcoming and the resilience that is found in Black people. So that's what my last program, I think, reflected. Okay. Y'all know I'm the goal getter person. Okay. I also this morning in a clubhouse room, Mama Nisi told us that she loves visioning, right? She loves vision boards. And so I think, why is there no question mark on the first one? Sorry, y'all. Typos, man. Anyway, so we're going to vision a little bit about our next programs, right? Again, whether that is for your own personal recital or concert, or that is you're a teacher and you're organizing something, or perhaps you have a job like I have, where you are putting, performers bring their pieces and you are putting together the program, right, in the order, or in an order, determining who goes last, who goes first, what pieces, and how that flows, and what the reflection is. So we're going to do a little bit of looking inward and a little bit about the program itself. So like I said, y'all know that I'm the goal getter girly. And I'm also goal oriented in my teaching. So what is the goal of this program, your upcoming program? What is the goal, right? Not just what is the thing that is being done, right? Like I am performing XYZ concert for XYZ, but what are you trying to story tell about? Like, what is the story that you're telling? What is the goal? What do you want people to know after your program? What stories am I drawn to? What stories am I drawn to? For me, it's Black stories, right? It is stories of joy. It is stories of love. There's a song called "I Want to Die While You Love Me," and like that's the kind of stuff that I'm really drawn to. I'm also drawn to sort of the darker themes. Like I do sing a song called, or an aria called Cassandra's Lullaby, and in that song it's very dark. I mean, her city is being burned and she's singing this lullaby to her brother. And so, I am drawn to the sort of less jovial of it all. But still there is joy in that, right? Like even in that song, there's an essence of joy, partially because of its beauty. So what stories are you drawn to? You can put this on a piece of paper, you can put it in the comment section, you can put it in the chat right now, you can put it in your notes app. It doesn't matter, but make sure you think about it. Who do I believe deserves a platform? So this is talking about composers, right? Like when and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but when you think about it, who is missing from your platform and who deserves to be platformed, right? And maybe your answer is Mozart and Beethoven plus others. Maybe your answer is only LGBTQIA plus. Maybe your answer is only Indigenous folks. Like, who deserves a platform? And that also is gonna, like, depending on your answer, you might need to do some more deconstruction. I invite you to listen to the Deconstruction Junction podcast with Love and Action Network at lovedandlovable.bio.link. And I also invite you to just start reading, start researching, start talking to people as you surface whatever comes up to that question. Where do I still feel ignorant or hesitant? I find that a lot of white people, white classical musicians, come to me with like, I don't know enough about Black composers or Indigenous composers or Asian composers, or straight people are like, I don't know enough about LGBTQIA plus life. So, and that makes you hesitant to then sing some of that repertoire. The other thing I get an awful lot is like, can I sing, like if I'm a white person, sorry y'all, I just like whacked the mic. Can I sing music by Black people, or can I sing music by, other races, genders, da 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 da? The answer is, well, not the answer, an answer that I have come about, and my rule of thumb is essentially that if the composer intended, right? Back to the first question, what is the goal, right? If the composer intended for the music to be sung by all people, which the majority of composers did, because remember, most composers, especially when you're looking in the 1900s, the 20th century, the 21st century, and now we've got singer-songwriters, that's what we call them, right? These people are looking for visibility, right? These people need people to sing their music, to have anthems that go beyond themselves. And so if a composer wanted that, right? If a composer wanted all races or all beings to sing their music, then you should not be hesitant about approaching that music. That music is for everyone according to the goal and intent of the composer, right? So my answer is do some research and do some inner reflections, because that ignorant or hesitant, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true. I'm gonna bring in the Byron Katie. I wasn't gonna do it tonight, but I'm gonna do it. So the Byron Katie, and I'll try to remember as I'm posting these to drop a link to the Byron Katie for questions. But it is it true? Is it unequivocally true? Right? Is it always true? How do I feel with the belief? And how would I feel if I let that belief go? Right? So that might be a spot where you want to, again, deconstruct, decolonize, and do some inner healing work. And once again, I'll shout out Love and Action Network, which has peer support groups daily, literally daily, if this is something that you want to come and let off your chest and talk about. You can also reach out to me. Okay. So like I said, we were just talking about this. It seems like this whole masterclass is about this. Whose voices were or are missing from the program? Okay. I wanted to touch on tokenism. This tokenism has come up in my stories before, probably like 3 years ago. We had a good discussion on tokenism. I wanted to define it in terms of programming. And I have talked about this and not called it tokenism, but I should, and I might write a little, rewrite and let the people know. So tokenism, including one composer or performer from a marginalized group to check a box without the real intention behind the choice. So this could be something, I think I have examples next, but the one that always pops in my head is putting I guess I don't have it, is putting a spiritual at the end of a choir concert for like literally no reason other than it's going to get claps. Like that's kind of a weird thing to do when we start thinking about it, and that is tokenism, right? Sometimes it also shows up like, and again, like I've talked about this before, but the Black History Month concerts that are all Black pieces, but only during Black History Month. Like, why are you waiting until Black History Month to do Black pieces? Or why are you waiting until June to do LGBTQIA plus pieces? Why are you waiting until May to do AAPI pieces? That's tokenization, right? Or here's another one that kind of shows up a little bit, right? It shows up in terms of like board composition, cast composition, etc. But we included X piece, a piece, so no one can say we're not diverse, right? You just include a composer, any composer of color, or any any oppressed group or global majority group, just to, again, check the box. Right? Okay. I think that makes sense. Okay. We're still on the whose voices were or are missing. So there can be representation beyond tokenism, right? And actually there must be. So we've got integration, not isolation. So again, not making an entire concert in Black History Month of Black composers, but rather having balanced programs that include white, black, green, purple, orange, right? So the composer's work is placed in conversation with others, not as a diversity add-on, right? It's not, again, not to check a box. So say, like, for me, like, something that often comes up when I sing Rosephine Powell, which I sing a lot of Rosephine Powell, in particular the song that I was mentioning earlier, which was the I Want to Die While You Love Me, would pair really well with Liebst du um Schönheit, which is both arranged, I mean, there's a lot of arrangements, but the two that I think of are the Mahler and the Clara Schumann. And so those pieces, the I Want to Die While You Love Me and the Liebst du um Schönheit, would be a very nice set on a program, but they have an intent to be together, right? So continuity, not one-off. I think that makes sense, right? Right? You want to do this over and over and over again, right? You want to include different composers, have diversity on your programs over and over and over and over again, right? Context, not erasure, right? We want to, I find that a lot of people will, after researching and after writing out what the song means to them and what the composer's intent was, they find that they feel less appropriative about the repertoire. And again, if the composer's intent was for all people to sing it, you do not need to feel bad about singing repertoire that was written for everyone, right? So you can do this through program notes. You can do this through teaching, right? Like you could speak. You could have a what do they call those? A teaching recital, okay? And like and I do this when I perform, like I will talk about the composer. I'll give a little bit of their bio, a little bit of the reason that the song was written, if I can find it, and not letting it go unacknowledged about who they were. Remember, we talked about identity at the very beginning of this masterclass. So next, depth, not surface. This is kind of the same thing. Go deeper than your first search on the internet, right? So if you're going to type in, let's take Florence Price. She's a very big composer right now. And a lot of people, I was just looking to see if my book was right there. It is right there. There's like two in the classical music. There's two anthologies of Black music that are pretty common. There's the green one and there's the gray one. And the gray one has the song Night by Florence Price. And so a lot of people are singing that song now because it's the most easily searchable and it's like one of the most recorded, right? And so you want to go below that. Like, what is the next most famous piece? You know how like on albums, you know how on albums there's singles that are released and those are like the popular ones, and then there's like the hidden jewels on the album. We're looking for the hidden jewels. We're looking through the thing that really lets us know that you know that artist, right? And then agency, not exploitation. And Dr. Flo has recommended this too before in various ways, but make sure you're talking to the living composers. Libby Larson is a great example of one. She will communicate with you the same way. Like, don't hesitate to reach out to, if you're performing and covering indie artists, or if you're performing and covering living artists in the musical theater or in the pop field, whatever field you're in. Try and reach out to these people. Oftentimes they are conversational. They're gonna talk to you, right? So you can invite them into the conversation. If you have the means, you could pay them, but also making sure that you cite them and cite their work, or find other places. I find that if they have, I think it's just Ryan. So yay! It don't matter. Yay! Hello. We're off to the races, but I'm so happy you're here. And that smile, I love it. Okay, where was I? Agency, not exploitation. I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. Just reach out to people. Like, take the chance. And if they never email you back, they never email you back. You know who is a very nice person in the classical world is, oh, what is that piece? Oh, hold on. It's clarinet and soprano, and her name starts with an L. Oh, shoot. Yep, that's it. Lori Laitman. Is that who yeah, Lori Laitman. She's wonderful to communicate with. She's a white lady, okay? But again, we're gonna talk about it in a second. Like all the ways you can diversify your program. She's very personable. I also know a whole bunch of living composers who are just like, they're just excited somebody's gonna perform their rep. Her handle is Clavia. Her name is B.E. Boykin. She is a Black woman. And I am premiering, I'm going to be a part of the Minnesota Opera world premiere of her opera, her first opera. And she's just also incredibly personable. Like, you can DM her and she will write you back. So don't be afraid to reach out to people and include them in the discussion if at all possible. Okay. Next, again, we're still on this whose voices were and are missing. The first step is admitting that people are missing, right? So if your program only includes dead white folks, what does that say about the organization and or you, depending on who's putting on that program? And this is for literally all of the people and all of the all white programming that I see across the interwebs. Like, what does that say about you? It says that you are comfortable with the status quo. It says that you do not have any want to dig deeper. Also, and this might piss some of you off that watch this later, but it also says that you are unwilling to learn something because, like we were just talking about, it's not popular, or you aren't the quality of a musician to learn something quickly. That's what I find about a lot of people that hesitate to put anything that kind of isn't in the canon, right? Or again, like with indie artists, or even with the bigger artists, the hidden gems on their albums, like a lot of people don't reach for those. I'm really grateful to have students that reach for the hidden gems, right? Like, I've got a student doing some Billie Eilish that was completely unknown to me. I got another student doing an Eric Church that was completely unknown to me. And so those are the things that you're wanting to look out for. Yeah. No stone unturned. Okay. Here's the way that we can diversify. These are some categories that we can diversify in. So race, ethnicity, that's the one that we've been primarily focusing on. Gender identity and or sexuality, nationality and geography. So again, back to Asian, right? Japanese, Chinese, Indian, German, Russian, even Russian music is not really popular in classical music. It's getting there, but it's not like particularly popular in the Western canon. And geography, well, obviously South African music, any country in Africa. I'm sure there is Egyptian classical music. I'm sure there is Egyptian pop music, because there's Palestinian pop music, and now it's all over the internet. So do some research, find some other nationalities and geographies that you can include music from. Era, right? So in classical music, for those of you that don't know, that are watching this later, I think it makes sense that classical music would also have eras of music. We've got Baroque, we've got classical, we've got Impressionist, hotly debated topic about what the time frame is for that one, right? We've got Romantic, and then we've got Contemporary, and then we've got like Neo-Contemporary if you're really cool and you want to go that way. But anyway, so living composers, and then of course in like popular musics, and even in like musical theater, right? We've got Golden Age, we've got kind of like that weird in between era, and then we've got contemporary. And even in contemporary music, we're starting to split into like belt and non-belt, right? Like we're like, lots of it is very belty from the early 2000s and on, and now we are not belty, right? Now we want the beautiful sounds. So just including different eras, right? I see a lot of programs, and if this is your intent, right, back to the very beginning, like what is your goal? If your intent is to produce a program of all 1800s music, then do all 1800s music. If your intent, yes, Ryan, yeah, they haven't stopped altogether, but there is definitely, and this is just a side note, but there, especially in voice teaching, what I notice is that there's always a pendulum, right? There's a pendulum that swings one way, and there's a pendulum that swings the other way, and it happens in every single genre of music and every single student, right? So like, just in voice teaching alone, right? Like 20 years ago, we talked about the diaphragm a lot. Now people are like, no, the diaphragm does its own thing. Stop talking about it. 20 years ago, people were all about the belt. And even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, people were all about the belt. But now there's composers that are writing in ranges that you cannot belt in. And so therefore, people are having to learn other ways of singing, right? So, and this is good that we're talking about this, because the very next thing on the list is genre crossover, right? So classical and other forms. I made a reel a while ago on jazz influenced classical composers, right? And so I think it's also important to remember that classical music too went through periods of being influenced by popular musics. So composers like William Grant Still, Florence Price, even what's her name? Her first name is Jessie. She is influenced by jazz. So a lot of her classical music is very influenced by jazz. A white dude named William Bolcom is very jazzy. And there's another dude, the Great Gatsby, John Harbison. He has a whole thing of like radio big band music that goes along with one of his operas. So these are very accessible. Okay, like these are things that exist in the echelon. They are not hard to find in terms of genre crossover. Dr. Flo, who's in the call right now, was in Rocktopia, right? Which is a giant crossover of classical music and rock music. Yeah, so these exist. Seek them out. Yeah. So also emphasizing intersectionality. If you can find things across and enmeshed with each other, right? These categories, then you're going to have a diverse program. Yeah. You can have a Black woman, mayhaps a Black trans woman from the 1800s, right? Like that would be cool. I've not found that composer yet, but that doesn't mean they don't exist yet, or they don't exist. You know, they're probably out there. They're probably just under a different name because classical music is racist. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So some places that I want to point you all to, in particular, these are classical music databases, and they can lead you to other places. Places like the bigger places like Music Notes, Sheet Music Plus, Hal Leonard, these places that produce also musical theater anthologies, those are going to have spots where it will say like music by Black composers or Black music. Like there will be spots on these major websites. Sheet Music Direct is another one. But for classical music specifically, you can look at the Institute for Composer Diversity, this one was called African Diaspora Music Project. There's also a group on Facebook that I can't remember, but I'll drop it in my Blackening the Canon chat, and I'll try to remember to put it in the comments when I repost this. Composers of Color Database, another one that I really like is the Boulanger Initiative. So if you're looking for women's music in particular, Boulanger's initiative is like your place to go. Living Composers Project, and then of course my group chat, Blackening the Canon, and any work, my albums and stuff are all Black music, primarily Black women, Black living women. Okay, so that is my intersection of diversity. You can also community sources. Okay, I'm part of Love and Action Network. Hello, we build community. Okay, so community sources, you can ask your colleagues, you can follow social media threads, you can explore undergrad or graduate recitals. I often do that. Like I'll go on and I'll just like look and see if a main college has their recitals listed. Like for my university, even Luther College, they will list the faculty recitals on their website, so I can go look what the faculty is performing. So you can start there. I even have, like, if if you're an old hat like me that used to have printed programming in classical music, I was looking for it, but I think my kid threw it. Uh, I have like paper copies of people's programming that I thought was really cool back in undergrad. So people may have those. So you could go to the college and look in their library. They keep them all forever. And then you can attend non-Western classical concerts. These exist everywhere. I remember in my undergrad, I went to a African drumming cross rhythm like masterclass concert thing. So cool. And by the way, speaking of things like people being influenced, composers being influenced, Mozart has African cross rhythms in his music, right? So then that leads you to believe, like, that would lead you to say, what was he hearing and what composers was he interacting with from another continent, right? And then we can start having a real discussion about how influenced everything is today. And that is why I think that this work is so important. I would love to find the first Black composer. Maybe they didn't write it down, but who's the first Black classical composer, right? So anyway, those are some community resources, and then obviously your personal research practice. So go into Google. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't work. Sometimes you gotta AI can get you somewhere, although I have found that AI surfaces a lot of places that are closed, and a lot of composers that like AI seems to have a harder time like staying with the specificity of your question. It tends to generalize a little bit more. I've just found that Google works a little bit better for rustling the feathers and being able to go layers and layers and layers and layers and layers deep. You can also look at, as you're researching, right, if you're looking at one composer or one singer songwriter, you can look at the people that are around that person and then branch out from there. Very easy with social media today, but that's how I go. Like, I'll go to Rosephine Powell, look at the people that follow Rosephine Powell, and then see if there's composers in that. Music libraries, of course, if you have access to them, and then streaming platforms, another great place. If you type in even like the Instagram music, right, you can type in a composer and it will usually pop up a whole bunch of people that have been working on that composer plus other composers. Spotify is great for that as well, although Spotify does not pay their artists, so like, use it with a grain of salt. Anyway, all right, so we're back to this goal-oriented thing. Yay. So when you're creating a program, and in my lessons, everything is goal-oriented. It's about what the student needs, right? So your program, what are you trying to say, right? Again, I asked this at the beginning because it was an agreement that we made. What story are you telling? And how can you find pieces that align with that? I see it in chats all the time. The voice teacher group, the classical music group, the giant groups on Facebook, where people are coming in and saying, hey, I'm putting on a recital about birds or about nature or about da-da-da, and I want to include XYZ type of composer or XYZ type of song. And people will answer, right? So what are you trying to say? What story are you trying to tell? Let that lead instead of checking the box of diversity, right? Remember, we talked about the things that we're moving away from tokenism and into actual acceptance, right? Who do I want to feel seen and heard, right? So think about who might be coming to these concerts. Think about who you're sharing this with. Think about who you're ignoring, right? I think we asked that question earlier. And then, am I programming for my comfort, right? Do you feel comfortable for it? Or for yours or your community's growth? And oftentimes that community's growth and your growth can be a little bit uncomfortable. You might be a little uncomfortable white person singing a spiritual, but I'm telling you, Moses Hogan wrote for everybody. All right? Sing it. Moses Hogan said you could. That was his intent. Sing it. Rosephine Powell on her website says, I want everybody singing my music. Sing her music, whoever you are. Okay? Oh, I don't know why that's the same slide. We're there, folks. I don't know why that's exactly the same slide. Let me check my other notes. And make sure that I got everything done. I think I did, but Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay. It was just an extra slide. Okay, so some reflection questions. If someone outside my culture, identity, or lived experience looked at my program, would they feel invited in or shut out? Am I programming for the audience I have, the audience I want, or both? What risks am I willing to take in my programming, and what fears are holding me back? Remember, we talked about the fears, the hesitation, right? What's making you hesitant or making you feel ignorant? That's part of that. When my community looks into the mirror of my program, what do I want them to see? Right back to, what story are you telling? What emotion do you want them to walk away with? You could also write down, what 3 to 5 emotions or what 10 emotions do you want people to feel from the way you deliver a song? This is Meisner, right? Like, what you feel inside and how you reflect that outside. And really focusing in on that, right? How do I measure success? Applause at the end, or the depth of conversations the program sparks afterwards. And I'll tell you what, I would rather have a conversation, right? I would rather people, yes, exactly. I see the chat, and I'm coming to you, Ryan. I see you. I would rather have a conversation than to have all of the applause in the world. My favorite thing on a program that I did last January was people walking up to me and saying, "We so needed this. How did you find the repertoire? How do I get it? How do I teach it to my students?" Right? So that is something really, like, just really important. I heard Ryan find it. All right, so I'm coming to you. That has been Your Program is Your Mirror. We have a couple minutes for questions here, and I'm interested in hearing your question, Ryan. Go for it.
So, my question is more so related to my specific program and my specific what I want with my fan base. And so, in my writing, it's all surrounded this fantasy country that I'm building. And the fantasy country, as it stands today, is an all Black country. And while I do want to diversify my readership, I don't want to diversify my readership at the expense of make not my country being all Black and not being about the Black experience and not being, because essentially my country is supposed to be a utopia for Black Americans and everything that we've gone through in this country. This My fantasy country is supposed to be the place where we feel at home, where we feel healed, where we can heal, where we can come together. But I don't want that premise of my fantasy country to limit the rest of my audience. And so that was more so like my question, like, if is that even possible? Like, if my goal is to have this all Black country but still diversify my audience, is that even possible, or is that something that I need to pick one?
I
That
don't think
makes
you need to
sense.
pick one because you have a very clear intent, right? And so, Piper, don't do that. And so the intent, don't do that, babe. Don't do that. Can you go see Daddy? Can you go see Daddy, please? Go find Daddy. He's hiding from you. Um, he's not hiding. He's not hiding. He's in the kitchen. But Piper's gonna go find Daddy. So you have a very clear intent already. Um, and so I don't perceive this being a problem. I don't think that you necessarily have to be as explicit, but two things came up for me. One, you can't actually control the distribution. What you can control is that you are aligned with who you are, right? And what you're writing. You can tell your story. And whoever engages with that story is not necessarily your responsibility. You are open to the attraction of anybody, but you are also keeping a safe space for Black people in this utopia that you are writing about. Yeah? The second thing is, I think there are Black authors that already have this. I think N.K. Jemisin is one. I think that Tracy Dion is one. Tracy Dion builds worlds that are, well, there's white people in her books, but there are like the primary characters are Black, right? And it's this journey of ancestry coming forward and dealing with the rape and the things that were happening in this magical world. It's a very, I don't know if you've read any Tracy Dion, but again, it's very much blackety black, but white people are reading it. And I don't think that Tracy Dion is concentrating on the white people. I think she is concentrating on writing a book and telling the story that she wants to tell and letting it attract whoever it attracts. Yeah. 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 Does that feel good to
that
you?
makes perfect sense. I appreciate that. And I'm gonna look up those two authors because I honestly never heard of them. But I'm gonna look them up and read some of their stuff. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's somebody else that I'm thinking of, but I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. And so I'll look back in my stuff and see if I see it. But yeah, I think, and I've been kind of circling this concept all day, but like the only thing that we can really control is ourselves. So once we put something out into the world, it becomes the people that are consuming it, right? But our intent is the thing that is fulfilling to us, right? The journey that we walk is the thing that's fulfilling to us. And so once it's in their hands, they get to be fulfilled by it or not, and they get to move it into their own definition of world. Yeah. And there's a I'm trying to remember what book it was in. It's by a black author. And I really don't remember it, but I remember this story because she was an author. It was a book that had an author in it, and she was a black author, and she was her book went to be turned into a movie, right? And in the movie, the producers of the movie were like, well, we want to include white people so it gets bigger, and the author was like, no, we're not doing that because that's not the story that I intended to tell, and that's okay. And it still went to a different producer, a black producer, and was produced with all black people, and white people consumed it because we can't stop that from happening, right? I mean, we can and we can't, right? Depending on how big we want to be. But it still was big in the box office in the book. So there's similar stories and pockets of stories. I would also, the last person I would tell you to look up is Michael LeBourne. He is a black publisher, black book publisher. And he talks about this kind of stuff an awful lot. So he's on Threads, he's on TikTok, he's on Instagram. He's been a really great resource for me to find black authors.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna look all of them up. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I'm happy that helped. And we'll keep in conversation. Who is that dog? Oh, that's to Ryan. I was like, there is no dog in here, Flo. Who is that dog? That's not Kauai. That's not Kauai at all. This is that niece, Stella. Beautiful.
Yeah, this is my niece, Stella.
Cutie pie.
She doesn't have a cousin, but it's okay, baby. You'll see him next time.
Aw. Cute. All right, y'all. I'm stopping this recording. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Those of you that are listening later, comment, message me, email me if you need to, and let's keep this conversation going. And also, I should pull you all into Blackening the Canon, which is where I talk about all of this stuff, where I post new composers that I'm finding, new anthologies that are posted, and I hope that will grow into musical theater and pop music, etc., and starting to get black people into the positions of all of it, because at a certain point it's like black composers using white poets, black composers having to sell their stuff to white publishers, right? Because there are no black publishing houses anymore. In fact, the one that was there in Major is closed. So yeah, I'm very much about going that way. And I think one of the ways is that we can diversify our programs. So that is the end. Y'all can check up with me at Tara Priolo Studio or tarapriolostudio@gmail.com. Okay, bye-bye.